Messages in invisible ink, secret codes, double agents. They're the makings of any good spy movie, but in this case, the story is far from fiction. Before James Bond and Jason Bourne, there was a man who uncovered dubious plots, foiled royal assassination attempts, and led the charge on one of the world's most controversial executions. His name was Sir Francis Walsingham, Queen Elizabeth I's principal secretary and alleged spymaster. Sir Francis Walsingham was born in 1532 in Kent, England. His family was more than familiar with royal courts. His father was a lawyer and his grandfather was a courtier, and his uncle was one of the gentlemen of the Privy Chamber of King Henry VIII. In 1548, 16-year-old Sir Francis enrolled at the King's College in Cambridge. Then, in 1552, he went to London to study law at the Gray's Inn. At this time, tensions between Protestants and Catholics in England were high, to say the least. A few years earlier, in 1533, King Henry VIII had left his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, and their daughter, Mary Tudor, for Anne Boleyn. After the Catholic Church refused to validate his marriage to Anne, King Henry VIII broke off with them, establishing the Church of England and closed down England's monasteries. That same year, Anne Boleyn gave birth to their daughter Elizabeth, who was widely deemed by Catholics as an illegitimate heir to the throne. Shortly after, Mary, Queen of Scots, was born to her Catholic parents, Scotland's King James V and Mary de Guise, and was made Queen of Scotland at just 6 days old. As King Henry VIII's niece, Mary was raised to believe that she was the rightful heir to the British throne, and many Catholics agreed. Mary Tudor, Elizabeth's half-sister, took the British throne in 1553. Mary Tudor wanted to return to England to the Catholic Church and began prosecuting Protestants. As a devout Protestant, Sir Francis and many others fled England. He went to Italy, where he studied Roman civil law for 5 years. Sir Francis returned to England in 1558, when Queen Elizabeth took the throne. Soon after, he was elected as a Member of Parliament and caught the attention of Sir William Cecil, the Queen's principal secretary. In 1568, Sir Francis started performing confidential tasks and overseeing intelligence gathering operations for Cecil, setting up headquarters in his London home. During this time, there were many attempts by Catholic rebels and nobles to replace Queen Elizabeth with Mary, Queen of Scots. Since Sir Francis could speak both English and Italian and was a talented linguist overall, Cecil wanted him to spy on foreigners in the city and weed out threats or plots against the Queen. Sir Francis developed an extensive intelligence operation comprising of double agents, expert forgers, code breakers, and more. He grew a network of spies that stretched across London and into many of Europe's major cities. There was seemingly nothing off limits to Sir Francis. He used everything from disinformation and covert propaganda to torture to gain his intel. In 1570, Sir Francis was appointed as the ambassador to France. His main responsibility there was to arrange a marriage between the Queen and the Duke of Anjou, the brother of the French king. But then came Bartholomew's Day, a Protestant massacre that took place in August of 1572. Catholic factions were on the rise in France, and Sir Francis fled back to England once again. After witnessing Bartholomew's Day, Sir Francis feared a Catholic uprising in England and was determined to stop something similar from happening in his home country. In 1573, Sir Francis was appointed to the Privy Council and became a principal secretary to the Queen, taking on even more responsibilities related to domestic and foreign affairs. In this role, Sir Francis was closer to the Queen than ever before, though she alleged had personal disdain for him. Still, she acknowledged his skills and competencies in his field, and in 1577 he received a knighthood and became Sir Francis Walsingham. In 1583, Sir Francis thwarted the Throckmorton plot. He had a spy in London's French embassy, Giordano Bruno, who intercepted vital information that was being shared with Mary, Queen of Scots, through embassy communication channels. The plot is named after Francis Throckmorton, who was found with the incriminating evidence, maps and plans for Spanish and French troops to invade England, and a list of Catholic residents in England who supported overthrowing Queen Elizabeth. By 1586, many radical Catholics wanted to replace Queen Elizabeth with Mary, Queen of Scots. Mary, who'd fled Scotland after being forced to relinquish her throne, was offered sanctuary by the Queen. She was still her cousin, after all. But soon after, the Queen started seeing Mary as a threat to her Protestant rule, and she had her detained in Chartley Castle. During this time, a group of Catholic rebels who'd fled England were organizing in Paris. Mary communicated with the group via Thomas Morgan, a cipher and recruiter for the cause. One of the group's members was Catholic priest John Ballard, who recruited a man named Gilbert Gifford to travel to England and deliver their letters to Mary. But upon arrival to England, Gifford was arrested and taken in by Sir Francis, who turned him into a double agent. Together they established a communication channel to Mary that would be filtered through Sir Francis. The conspirators would write their letters, and Gifford would take them to Sir Francis to be reviewed. Then they would be sent on their way to Mary, hidden in corks of beer barrels that were delivered to Chartley Castle, where she was being held. Anthony Babington, a conspirator who was already on Sir Francis's radar, met with Morgan in Piers and developed a plan to not only help Mary overthrow the throne, but get rid of Queen Elizabeth altogether. They had heard about the plot from Morgan and told Sir Francis, then encouraged Babington to use their beer barrel method to tell Mary of the plot. But Babington didn't completely trust them, so he wrote his letters in a cryptic code. He sent the letters off to be passed on to Sir Francis and his team of expert letter openers and forgers, as well as his trusted cryptanalyst Thomas Philippes. Philippes broke the code, which revealed Babington's plot to assassinate the Queen. Sir Francis's team then made a counterfeit version of the letter and sent it on to Mary. Mary received the letter and crafted her response, which was intercepted by Philippes and Sir Francis. Once decoded, Mary's letter revealed that she was implicit in the assassination plot and guilty of treason. In it, she allegedly wrote, "When all is ready, the 6 gentlemen must be set to work, and you will provide that on their design being accomplished, I may be myself rescued from this place." But Sir Francis and Philippes started to worry it may not be enough to convict Mary, so they decided to let the plot continue and see if Babington and Mary would further incriminate themselves. Philippes forged a new letter to Babington asking for more information on those involved in the plot, which Babington responded to. Babington then found out that Sir Francis was aware of the plot and went into hiding, but he was eventually found and arrested. Meanwhile, Mary, who had been locked away for quite some time, was finally allowed a rare opportunity to go on a horseback ride. While riding, she saw what she believed to be a group of Catholic supporters approaching her in the field, but they were actually Sir Francis's men. They had lured her outside to search her residence for evidence. Sir Francis's men took Mary and tried to convince her to command the rebels to stop the assassination plot against the Queen, but she denied knowing anything about it. Mary's conspirators were soon arrested and taken to the Tower of London to be tortured. Elizabeth wanted their deaths to be especially bad, serving as a warning to other conspirators. So they were hanged until they were nearly dead, disemboweled, and then their bowels were burned. Finally, their limbs were removed and put on poles for all the public to see. 3 weeks later, Mary was brought to trial. She denied the accusations against her, and instead she accused Sir Francis of entrapment, though he never admitted to controlling the plot or having any knowledge of the beer barrel letters. In 1587, Mary, Queen of Scots, was sentenced to death. Queen Elizabeth delayed signing the execution warrant since Mary was still, after all, a royal. Once she eventually signed it, she refused to release it, but then it was carried out by the Privy Council. Mary was beheaded within hours. Elizabeth was reportedly furious, claiming she hadn't sanctioned the execution. Afterwards, she couldn't eat or sleep because of it, claiming the councillors acted without her direct say-so. Meanwhile, Sir Francis had started suffering a serious illness. His eyesight was failing, he couldn't write properly, and he had mysterious pains and was bedridden for months at a time. He carried on working as best he could, though as Queen Elizabeth still relied heavily on him after Mary's execution, she feared retaliation. And retaliation she faced. In 1588, King Philip II of Spain launched the Spanish Armada against England. But Sir Francis, though ill, was still able to gather important information and intel from his network of naval spies. He fed disinformation to Spanish agents, which helped Sir Francis Drake pull off a successful surprise raid on Cadiz harbor and greatly diminish Spain's resources. Sir Francis's Spanish spies also provided intel on Spain's war plans, which led the Navy to reinforce their coastal defenses and defeat the Armada. On April 6, 1590, Sir Francis Walsingham died at his home in London, England from testicular cancer. From statesman to spymaster, Sir Francis lived a life of intrigue and was constantly on the pursuit of knowledge and intel. As he said, "There is less danger in fearing too much than too little." Thank you all for watching another episode of Grim Histories. If you like this content, please subscribe and hit the like button. Don't forget to comment your thoughts down below on a subject you'd like me to cover in the future. But as always, thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye.